Hello everybody and welcome back to another World Cup review. Today I'm doing the action from day 9 of the World Cup and day 10. This includes Georgia versus Uruguay, Wales versus Australia and Scotland versus Samoa. So let's get straight into it. The first game of this video, I'm going to be reviewing Georgia versus Uruguay. And this one, we came into it thinking, can Uruguay pull off another upset? Will Georgia come back strong after their heavy defeat to Wales? And it was the latter that happened. Georgia came back after their heavy defeat from Wales and played really well. And they generally did play really well. They were very good against Uruguay. I think they gave Uruguay a lot of respect. Thinking, right, they could pull off another upset. So we've got to play. And they did, they played really well. Of course, they came space around the forwards, we know that, but their attacking play was amazing. And never really seen by Georgia, but their little scrum half was fantastic. Carving runs in, and he created one of the tries. He was absolutely brilliant. The whole Georgian squad today was brilliant, and to be fair, they did look very threatening, but I guess the issue with Georgia is that they can play these Tier 2 nations, they can play well against these Tier 2 nations, they can prove themselves like they did, but they could struggle against Tier 1 nations like they did against Wales, and that's the issue with Georgia. Georgia are one of those teams that are like stuck in the middle between Tier 1 and Tier 2, because when they play Tier 1, they aren't brilliant, but when they play Tier 2, they play really well, like they did against Uruguay, because their defence was brilliant against Uruguay. Their forwards were brilliant against Uruguay, their backs were playing well as well, they were just very good in the game, and I think they controlled it well once they got in the lead. But when they played against Wales, we didn't really see much of this. We saw how good their forwards pack was at the end of the second half, but other than that we didn't really see much. But I think this game was a true reflection on how good Georgia were, and they played well. They deserved the victory in the end, and they got the victory. For Uruguay, I don't think they should go with their heads down, because I don't think they played badly. They were there or thereabouts in the first half. They were with them, they stuck with them, but I think it was the 4-day turnaround that they had. They did have a 4-day turnaround for the game, and I think they struggled. They tailed off near the end, and I think what helped them through that Fiji game is the momentum of them being ahead. And the fact that they were behind, and they were behind by about 20 points, they sort of lost it, and the tiredness came in, the fitness factor came in, and because Georgia had the momentum, they didn't lose their fitness, and they kept on going, they kept on peppering. Plus, they did have a longer time to rest, rather than Uruguay did. Uruguay only had the 4 days, and it's tough, and we've seen that through a lot of teams, how tough it is, especially for these Tier 2 teams, and we saw it again with Uruguay. But yeah, I don't think they played horrifically. They weren't bad. They played really well in the first half. They did defend well, they showed grit, they showed determination, but in the end they did tail off, and they lost it. I think it was the fitness issue. But really, I think the best team won on the night. I think Georgia won, and they deserved to win. And they got what they deserved, and Georgia got the bonus point as well. They get 5 full points. Yeah, so they'll be going into their next game against Fiji with high hopes, and that will give them confidence at Uruguay game, especially going into the game against Fiji, which is a must-win for them to make 3rd place in the group, and they'll be hoping to do that, and we'll see how well they play. For Uruguay though, they've got 2 tough teams now in Australia and Wales. I think they should just stick to their game and show the determination and grit that they've shown in the first 2 games, and they should be fine to play well in those games, but we'll see how they get on. But as a whole, Georgia deserved the victory, and they got the victory. Well done to Georgia, and that should give them a whole lot of confidence going into their next couple of games. And the second game I'm reviewing is Australia versus Wales, and my god, was this a game and a half. It was brutal. It was brilliant, and of course there was a lot of controversy. Now, Wales won this game. They won it 29 points to 24. And it's hard to say whether they deserved it or not, because they played really well in that first half and they scored good tries. Of course, Hadley Parks with picking up the crossfield kick, Gareth Davis busting through the lines as well in an intercept to score the tries. They did take their opportunities when they arose to them, and they played really well in that first half. I mean, they shut Australia out. Australia can really do much about it. Adam Ashley Cooper did score a try. I think it's now his fourth. He scored a try in every World Cup he's appeared in, so I think that's 4 now. He's been in 4 World Cups, so he scored in every World Cup, I think, anyway. He scored in that first half as well. But Australia, other than that, didn't really get a foothold in the first half. It was all Wales. Wales had all the ball, they were attacking well, they were potent, and when Australia had the ball they were just loose. They just were so slow and sluggish at the start. It was a bit underwhelming, to be honest, for a game that was billed to be at the top of the level. Australia just didn't bring that at all straight away, and it was quite sad to see, but they did come back into it, and this game was a typical story of 2 halves. Wales brilliant in the first half, but Australia were brilliant in the second half, and they were outstanding in that second half. Australia, they were all over Wales, not allowing them to get any ball. Australia were pushing them back all the time, having to cause Wales to do scramble defence, and it was really hard work for the Welsh defence. They managed to hold them out. They managed to hold them out for a little while, but Australia managed to get over the try line, and they played really well in the second half. It was what Australia are, and in that second half it's the potent Australia that we should know. But for me, I think they left it way too late in this one. They really did. I think some decisions didn't go their way. Of course, that didn't help them. The Karevi arm in the face of Patchell, which for me is a bit of a tough one to call, because you shouldn't put an arm into someone's face even if you have the ball. But on the other hand, you could say that it's just trying to push away the tackler, and his tackle technique, Patchell's tackle technique wasn't brilliant in the first place, which I don't think it really was. So that's the sort of decision which didn't go their way, which could have been fine lines, could have gone their way, could have not, and it didn't. And it's those decisions which hurt Australia, I think. But it's not to say that the ref was biased towards Wales, because a lot of decisions didn't go the Welsh way either, and a lot of forward passes were missed, offsides were missed from both sides, so all round the refereeing was just quite poor. But going back to the game, I think Australia in the second half really showed what they're about, but for me they left it way too late, and it meant that Wales had enough of a margin to win the game. And the drop kick from Patchell, which won the game eventually, meant everything, because Australia came from a 15-point deficit to a 1-point deficit. They had all the momentum on Wales. It was all Australia, and for all money you would think that they would get over the line. But Wales really showed their strength and character, really showed their doggedness to get through the game, and that's the sort of doggedness you need to get through in the quarterfinals, in the semi-finals, to win the final. And Wales, this was almost treated like a knockout, and Wales played it to perfection. They really saw the game out. Once Australia were 1 point behind, from then on they started seeing the game out, and they did that brilliantly. Once Patchell got over that drop kick, I think all the nerves that the Welsh had in that second half were gone, and they started to not dominate the game, but finish the game off, close it out. And that start from Australia, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was nerves, maybe they weren't up to the occasion, but that slow start hurted them a lot, and I think that is what caused them to lose. I don't really see a deserved winner out of this. because I think Wales played really well in the first half and Australia played really well in the second. So you could say both teams deserved the win. But for me, I think it was won in that first half, and that first drop goal in the opening 3 minutes for Dan Biggar and Wales, because that set them off. That put them in the lead, and from then on Australia were chasing the game, and they didn't cope with it in that first half and ended up with a 15-point margin to get back, and that's a massive margin to pull back in a World Cup, and they managed to bring it back to 1. But yeah, I feel like if they didn't play so poorly in the first half, they could have easily won this game, but they didn't, and Wales ended up winning the game and seeing it through, and they did well to do so. In terms of the refereeing decisions, I think Karevi was unlucky to get a penalty against him, because I don't think Patchell's tackle technique in that was amazing. I don't think it was brilliant, and I think he was almost jumping into the tackle as well, so there was more chance for the arm to go into the face. So yeah, I feel like the tackle technique wasn't the best from Patchell. He should have gone more lower. But yeah, another one, the Dan Biggar one, where Hooper shoulder barged him. Now, I think Hooper was lucky to not get a yellow in this one, because he led with his shoulder, and I feel like there was enough time for him to pull out of it. He was going for the tackle and ended up not pulling out of it and just going straight in with the shoulder to the head, and I feel like that's a missed yellow. I feel like that's a yellow card, because you can't do that. It doesn't matter if it's accidental, it doesn't matter if he's trying to pull out of it, you can't go for someone with the head. And he had time to pull out of it. I don't feel like he was actually pulling out of it. He didn't wrap his arms, he was late as well, and I feel like it was an obvious yellow and the ref missed it. There was a lot of referee decisions which weren't on point in this game, and I feel like parts of them did ruin the game a bit. But really, other than that, the game was brilliant, fantastic game, and for me, one of the best in this World Cup. Wales saw it through. Now they take control of Pool D. It's looking like they'll finish on top. Australia still have a little bit of work to do, but I still see them going through. But Wales will take the most confidence out of this, and with the way they celebrated, they will take much confidence into their next game, and we'll see if they can hold on to top this group. So the final review is about Scotland versus Samoa. Now, coming into this game, Scotland had to win it after their opening loss to Ireland, which was a poor performance. This was a game they had to win. Meanwhile, for Samoa, with a 5-point victory against Russia, getting the 5 points, they could have actually pushed their claim for quarterfinals if they beat Scotland, but they didn't. And Scotland got their first win of the World Cup with a 34-0 victory over Samoa. And to be honest, this game wasn't the most enjoyable. I feel like it was quite dull, to be honest. And it was horrible conditions as well. But Scotland got the job done and they did what they needed to do. But they did struggle at the beginning. I mean, Samoa never really got into the game, but Scotland took a while to flick through their gears. They started well, they were looking good, they were pressuring Samoa, but they weren't pulling anything off. They didn't look dangerous. They were just a bit laboured, a bit slow, coming out of the blocks. But once they scored that first try, Finn Russell with the kick to Sean Maitland, once he scored that try, the floodgates well and truly opened. And they started playing really well. And in the end, they deserved the victory. They definitely deserved the victory. I think Samoa were appalling, to be perfectly honest. That's putting it nicely. They didn't show up. They looked lethargic. They looked like they didn't want to be there. And it's not good to see a team play like that. For me, this may sound bad, but I genuinely think that was probably the worst performance from a team at the World Cup this year. And for me, Scotland should have put more past them, because they weren't playing well. And Scotland only scored 4 tries, 2 of them were penalty tries. And they could have and should have scored more against Samoa because they were just non-existent almost. They were just not in the game. It was all Scotland. Scotland were putting the pressure on them, not allowing them to get any momentum. And they were just pushing them back all the time. Every time Samoa had the ball, they were getting pushed back. And there was no fluency from the Samoans. For Scotland though, they did well. They played well. They got 2 tries in the first half, 2 tries in the second. But I don't think Scotland played amazingly. I feel like they got the job done. And that's what they needed to do. They're still a long way back from where I think they need to be to get out of this group. But it's a stepping stone. It's a step in the right direction. Getting a good 5-point victory. Getting the bonus point. They're going in the right direction. But I can't say it was the best performance I've ever seen from Scotland. It was definitely better than when they played Ireland, for sure. But there's still a lot of work to do if they want to get out of this group. They know that they're behind in the race. They know that they have to win every game and they've got to get 5 points in pretty much every game. But they've still got Japan to play, and if they play the way they did, I still don't see them beating Japan. It was a good victory, but I can't see them getting out of the group if they carry on playing like that. But you never know. They will get confidence from this victory. And they'll get confidence for keeping Samoa on nil as well, to not let them through, not let them score. Because we know how dangerous Samoa are, we know how good they can be. And to not allow a team like Samoa to score with the threats they have, it's very good from Scotland. And I think they will definitely go in with confidence, especially when their defence has been very leaky in the past. Keeping a team on nil, not even giving away a penalty, that is a good sign, especially going forward into these all-important next 2 matches. Now, of course, Scotland's next match is against Russia. I'd expect them to beat them, but I'd still think they need to put out their best team, and I want to see them go one step further, show a bit more fluidity, show a bit more intent, because at times they were a bit laboured, and they need to score more tries, because really they only scored 2 tries off their own play. The others were penalty tries, off Samoa mistakes and penalties. So I feel like Scotland need to go a bit more further, they need to show more intent, a bit more attacking physicality. But I think they'll beat Russia, but I think they need to go one step further and show what they can do even more against Russia, to just give them that confidence going into the last game against Japan. For Samoa though, this was not a good display from them, and they have Japan next, and they will not be going into that game with confidence from their game against Scotland, because that was not how I'd imagined Samoa to play. I'd imagined them to be dangerous, big ball carriers, and they just were non-existent today, and they were just not there. They didn't look at the races, they didn't look like they wanted to be there, and that's going to be a struggle if they play like that against Japan. They're just going to get rolled over. If they raise their spirits against Japan, they can go into the last game of the tournament looking good, but if they play like they did against Scotland, it's going to be a struggle for them. But yeah, 34-0 victory for Scotland. They will go into their next game with a lot of confidence, and we'll see where this win takes them. They've got a lot of work to do still, but it gives them a lot of confidence going into their next few games.